Vikram Chandra. Watch YoIndiaTV.
Hello everyone, we have the legendary writer Vikram Chandra right here at Sela Fest 2022. Welcome to YoIndiaTV with me, Jasleen Khanuja. How are the vibes overall?
They're brilliant. So we are at the South Asian Arts and Literature Festival at the Montalvo Art Center, and I'm having a terrific time.
I was seeing your sessions yesterday evening and then today, a lot of information that you gave out from your personal life and your experience in Mumbai, and I was tracing it back to the books that you have written, especially The Love and Longing in Bombay, the short tales. So I see you're both a novelist and a short tale writer. How do you take that?
Well, I have written one book of short stories, but my natural length is long. So even in that short story book, the first short story is maybe 20 pages, but they finally end up getting longer and longer. So I think I have to accept that I'm a person who writes books, novels or, a book of non-fiction. I'm not really a short story writer.
Yeah.
Well, in Love and Longing in Bombay, there's a story in which Sartaj actually first shows up. And that's it's a short story, so it's necessarily much more simple. And at that time, I started to meet some policemen just to get background and spend time in police stations. And I have to say, my guide into this whole world was the great Indian journalist Xavier. And there's a connection with Black Friday in that it's based on one of his books. And so, also, I guess the other impulse was that I spent a lot of time in Bombay in the 80s and 90s, and at that point in time, it was the time of the big gang wars, right? So, there were automatic weapons being fired on the street. One of the big shootouts happened 3 blocks from my house in Lokhandwala, and my father and I heard the automatic weapons as we were heading home. So I started to get very curious, and then the film industry at that time was the target of extortion, large-scale extortion by the companies. And my entire family, except for my father and myself, are in the industry. And so some of my friends and acquaintances were being extorted. One of them was actually shot very narrowly. The bullet passed an inch from his heart. And my brother-in-law, Vinod Chopra, was actually threatened. And he's kind of mad, so he told them in very colorful Punjabi galis on the phone where they could put their extortion threat. And suddenly he had to spend the next 3 years under armed guard, right? And so I just got, what is happening and why is it happening? And so then through Hussain and my other police contacts, I started to ask people. And I thought at that time I was writing a 250-page crime thriller, right? Like dead bodies in the beginning, at the end you figure out who did it. And then one very senior policeman in Bombay said to me, you can't figure this out until you investigate politics and you go to Delhi and meet some people that are, and he was talking about people in the intelligence agency. And so it became, you can't talk about organized crime without talking about politics, and if you're talking about politics in today's world, you're talking about religion. The intelligence agencies, not just the South Asian ones, everywhere in the world, use these guys as kind of extrajudicial arms. So suddenly the book exploded, became 900 pages.
So, people when they write verbose, sometimes it is said that who's gonna read so much long, this is an era when people's attention span is small, even in television or YouTube or somewhere else, they watch the clip just for a few seconds and they leave it out, the rest of it. So how are you so confident that your books will be such award-winning numbers?
I don't think about it, right? Because like I said, writers, like bowlers, right? They have their natural, fast bowler or slow, right, or medium. I guess you could change it, but maybe you wouldn't be very good if you're a spinner and you're trying to do fast pace, I don't think, you'd be that good, right? So I just accept it.
That's your style.
Yeah, it's just what I do, and I don't want to, agonize over it. And you put the book out in the world and you'll find at least some readers, right? So in Hindi, Sanskrit, we have this word Saridaya, right? So that's a reader or a viewer with the same heart as you, right? And so you find those people and they like your work. Other people, no matter what you publish or release, some people are going to like it, some people are going to not like it, some people are going to hate it. If you're an artist, you have to accept that.
कभी कभी लगता है कि अपन ही भगवान है। भगवान को मानते हो?
So in terms of the diction and the choice of words when you write a particular sequence or bring out a particular emotion, there is a mixed feeling that sometimes usage of heavy words or words that are more unpopular with a common reader won't hit as much or won't be so close to their hearts, because comprehension may be an issue. So when you pick and choose a word to vent out your emotions, what's your criteria and how do you deal with simple versus complex vocabulary?
Again, I think each writer has their style and you got to choose, and it often changes by project, right? So what I was saying in the session that we just did, that in Sacred Games, what I wanted to do was to use the language, the kind of English that you would naturally use in Bombay, right? If I'm telling a story to you sitting in a bar or in a restaurant about Bombay, set in that place and that culture and that time, I use a kind of English in which I go out and in, right? I might use local slang, right? I would say, hey Bidu, just listen to this story, okay? It's a great story. So then that thing comes naturally out of us, right? And then I try to put that on the page,
So when Sacred Games was actually filmed, and when you saw that movie on the Netflix, and maybe before that, maybe they took your permission when they released it, what were some of the notable elements of difference in your writing versus in the filming?
Well, in order to make a movie or a series out of a book, you necessarily have to make changes, right? And so it's a 900-page book. First of all, you're not going to be able, even in a, if you have 16 episodes or whatever, you're not going to be able to get every detail, right? And then the form of a movie is really different, right, from a novel. So if you're trying to make a movie that has tension, like it's a thriller with a ticking bomb, like in the novel, for the first 100 pages, Sartaj hears something that suggests there's some danger, right, on a large scale danger, but that he doesn't know anything else. So he's working on a very small murder case, right, in a basti. So he doesn't, there's no exciting forward driving plot with a ticking bomb. But if you try and do that in the first episode of a series, people will get bored and switch it off, right? So you've got to start the bomb right at the beginning, right? So whatever changes they made, I thought were brilliant. They were very good, and I loved it.
Literal translations from one medium to another are really bad. They're as bad as when you try and translate poetry and you do it literally, you leave the poetry behind, right? I mean, if you just think of how you translate Jigar Ka Tukda to English, it comes out as a piece of my liver, right? It makes no sense. You have to do piece of my heart, right? So, and I've worked a little bit in film, and I know how annoying writers can be when they try and hold on to tight. So I was just take the book and do with it what you will, right? And I think these guys, the writers and directors, did an amazing job of an impossible translation. Right? And I'm really happy and proud of them.
Thank you. It really means a lot, and also because, you have been really, really gracious with all your, the freedom you gave us, and not just the freedom, but also the feedback at every stage, and the feedback was always very, very gently given, and always you gave us the option of not taking it, which was amazing, and so that really helped us, because I'm sure you know, but still for everybody else, like season 1 when we were writing, we waited a long time to show you what we were doing. We kept the pilot till the last moment when it became like impossible to kind of shield it, and we shared it with great fear, and we didn't know how you will react to it. And when your first reaction came, it was like, okay, now everything is now it doesn't matter what people think. At least we have not kind of mutilated your work or something like that. So which was really helpful. And apart from that, of course, your constant kind of being in touch and being responding to, and not just responding to. We would write like a 2-line question. Sometimes that would just easily could be answered in a yes or no, or just 1-line thing, but you would go back and research and meet your other friends who were probably specialists in that subject, like something like a nuclear material, and we asked him some basic question, and he actually contacted one really senior professor of nuclear physics, who actually then sent us lots of material, which really helped. But that was the kind of commitment.
I hope you deleted it all from your laptop.
So yeah, at some point we started writing in our email subject for fiction only.
So you like beginning with the climax, and you agree that there should be some suspense right at the beginning, so that the viewer or the reader, as the case may be, would be compelled to watch to the end.
I think usually in the cinematic universe, it's more important to do that. I think in novels you don't have to do that. I mean, in a novel, I think what matters is language, interiority of the characters, the landscape you can spend much longer on. So, like I said, like in Sacred Games, the book, there's that conversation between Gaitonde and Sartaj, but there's not an immediate knowledge of what it is about, right? First, Sartaj and the intelligence people have to actually figure out what he said, because it makes no sense to them, right? So that takes, in the book, that takes quite a while.
कौन?
सुनो ना, लाइफ बदलने वाला है तुम्हारा। 25 दिन है, बचा लेना अपने शहर को।
उसने तुम्हें क्यों फोन किया?
मैंने भी उससे यही पूछा सर।
बताया उसने?
उसने बोला सब मर जाएंगे। ईमानदार आदमी को बम्बई में जगह नहीं, इंडिया में जगह नहीं।
सस्पेंशन ऑर्डर, इलाज कराओ, वेपन सरेंडर करो।
गणेश गायतुंड है मैं, सर्वशक्तिशाली इकलौता भगवान है।
पक्का मत। कौन है?
दिलबाग सिंह का पुराना दोस्त।
पापा जी को कैसे जानता है तू?
यही तो खूबसूरती है इस शहर की साहिब, इधर कुछ भी हो सकता है।
गायतोंडे की वार्निंग का इस करेंसी के साथ कनेक्शन हो सकता है। I need a call like you.
So Red Earth and the Pouring Game, your very first novel that made you so famous, that was a Commonwealth Prize, first book, best book as well, So, and thereon then you got so many prizes, you got recognized for so many of your novels, and the recent one, we just saw that you were signing with a lot of people who were geek sublime. So how have you evolved as an author?
It's a complicated question. Well, I think, life forces you to see certain things, right? Like I said, the crime in Bombay in the 80s and 90s, that's what drew me towards writing Sacred Games. And then, I'm a kind of a techie as well. I have a software company. So that's why I got interested in writing about the culture of Silicon Valley, So who knows where I'll go next, right? It's not, so at least I as a writer don't make conscious choices, okay, this is my next project, this is what it's going to be about. Whatever's in the environment, right, is what sometimes I'll find something to write about.
Yeah, so you are one such author who is truly impacted by the environment of the Silicon Valley. Your startup Granthika is a great example of the fact that you are putting AI into art, a great blend. Tell us a little more about it.
So the Granthika is a tool for writers, which makes writing books, we hope, much easier. So one of the problems that you face as a writer is that you've got to remember huge masses of detail, right? Like your research leads you to it, your character appears to you. So what happens normally when you're writing using a conventional word processor is that all your notes are somewhere on the computer, you've taken photographs, they're somewhere else, right? So what we've done is that when you're writing, you can instantly put on notes for each character, event, geography, object, like this bottle, or like in a fantasy, you might have a magic sword or something, right? So then when you're writing 200 pages later and you want to look up something, with one click you can go to your notes, and with one click you can come back. So it's essentially to save the writer from spending hours trying to find the research that you've already done, maybe 3-4 years ago, right? And it's a problem that all writers face at some point.
So it's an easy navigation, easy search tool.
Yeah. So if you imagine like a word processor combined with a database, right, or a note-taking program, it's all in one place, right?
Brilliant. That's a one-stop shop. So for all the authors, you got to have Granthika.
One of the things that I think I wanted to get across with this book to people who are not programmers is the idea that programmers care about beauty. Now, why is this, right? So the answer is that normally one would think that a piece of code, a program, is a series of instructions issued to a machine, right? And the machine doesn't care about whether it's elegant or not. So, but what you're writing, the sending instructions to the machine is only incidental. It's a kind of side effect. What you're really writing code for is to communicate with the programmer who will look at your code 3 years later and try and understand it and change it and fix bugs in it and add features to it, right? And so because of this, clarity, expressiveness, elegance, the code should make itself clear what it's trying to do, so that the person can actually understand what it's trying to do. And if you don't do that, even reading your own code 3 months after you've written it, you can look at it and it looks like some sort of Egyptian hieroglyphics. It makes absolutely no sense. So on the sentence by sentence level or the code line by code line level, that's what you're really thinking about, is how to make this absolutely clear and how to state it in a way that is succinct yet understandable.
Coming back to your film background, because you belong to a family which has been so much deep into films, and they are so much reputed for the same as well. Your mom was a great writer as well. She wrote for Prem Rogue and 1942, A Love Story, if I'm right. And then you have yourself penned down Mission Kashmir, which was again a very famous movie by...
One of the writers.
You were one of the writers, yes. And you were so closely associated with the director, of course, Vikram Chopra, he being your brother-in-law.
Yeah.
So give us some insights into your writing of the Mission Kashmir, and how was it a different experience than the usual stuff you write?
Well, I mean, Vidhu is from Kashmir. He grew up in Srinagar. And so he has a very close attachment to Srinagar, right? And to Kashmir. So I was doing research up in Srinagar and Jammu for my book, for Sacred Games. And I heard a lot of stories. So when I came back, I was telling him a bunch of these stories, and that one story about a cop who adopts a kid whose parents have been killed and his own son has been, his own child has died. That became the center of, he got very moved by that. And that's how we ended up making it. And the way it's different, like we talked about it, the structure of screenplays, the way that dialogue works, that's very different in a film than from a book.
So when you talk to your sisters, Anupama Chopra is so famous as well, and Tanuja, who is a screenplay writer, and other members in your family, all from the film industry. Like, how is your connection different, you being in US?
Oh, I mean, I'm in India twice a year, and I mean, like I said, I don't work in the industry, right? I'm associated. I know what Vidhu's working on, and we talk about that. What my sister is working on. So I've never wanted to be like in the industry, right? So it's lovely for me, right? Because I'm a passionate film goer. I love Indian movies, right? I've been especially because of my mother, I've been watching movies since I was a tiny little kid, right? So it's great being aligned with the industry, right? It's the right place for me.
हिंदुस्तान में पाकिस्तान से ज्यादा मुसलमान रहते हैं। मिशन कामयाब होने के बाद वे मुसलमान भी इस जिहाद में शामिल होंगे और हमारा ये गुमनाम लश्कर दुनिया के मुजाहिदीन में सबसे रोशन नाम होगा।
असल में ये जंग तुम्हारे और खान साहब के बीच है ही नहीं। नेकी और बदी में, हैवानियत और इंसानियत में, कहर और कश्मीर में क्या जिंदा रहे, ये तुम्हें तय करना है अल्ताफ।
हिंदुस्तान का वजीर आजम वादी से जिंदा नहीं जाना चाहिए। यही है हमारा मिशन कश्मीर।
सोचो के झीलों का शहर हो, लहरों पे अपना एक घर हो, हम जो देखें सपने प्यारे सच हो सारे बस और क्या।
So Vikram, what's your final message to all the viewers of YoIndiaTV?
Oh, I should say that you should come to this festival, the South Asian Literature and Arts Festival, and support it. And if you're watching this from far away, support whatever's local to you, right? Especially these festivals or these conferences between artists and writers are very important, right? Because we are representing our culture, our place, and this is a chance for you to interact on a personal, face-to-face level with the writers, filmmakers, artists that you love.
Thank you so much, Vikram. This was a very insightful conversation for all the literature lovers as well as the film lovers. We really appreciate your time in talking with YoIndiaTV. Thanks a ton.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.